Okay, so you clicked on this video because you want to learn how to install a standing seam metal roof. Let's get started. Okay, so before we get started in the video, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and, well, why it makes sense to listen to me. My name is Blenkinsopp. I'm the owner of a company called Digital Roofing Innovations. I'm a U.S. military veteran. I'm a licensed general contractor and roofing contractor in over 9 states. Currently, we're doing a project for the National Park Service for the U.S. government. And so on this video, we're mainly going to focus on mechanically seamed, standing seam roofing projects, but both will apply to snap lock as well. All right, let's go. Okay, before we start talking about how to actually install these panels, I want to talk a little bit about safety, because safety is very, very important, particularly when you're doing a large metal roofing project like this. And as you can see, these panels are pretty steep. This pitch on this roof is actually a 9/12 pitch, so it can be very, very dangerous to work on. Now, OSHA tells us anytime that we're working above 6 feet, we need to have a harness on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what safety equipment that I have on this actual project right before we talk about the installation. So as you can see, we have safety anchors installed right on top of the roof. We actually have a video of what the different type of standing seam roofing anchors we actually use on our projects, both for permanent and temporary while the guys are working on it. We have lanyards, and all the guys are going to be wearing harnesses anytime they start getting up on the roof. The last thing that you need to make sure that your guys are using is a hard hat. Now, anytime that the guys are working close to the roof, they're required to wear a hard hat. We also have a video about hard hat safety while working on a roofing project. But since projects like this can be very, very dangerous, please, please, please make sure you or your guys are wearing your safety harnesses. Okay, so we're done with safety. Now we can actually talk about installing the panels on this roof. Now, what we're installing here is actually a 24 gauge metal, mechanically seamed, standing seam metal roof. And if you notice and look at our seams that we actually have on our roof, we're actually going to be doing a 180 degree turns. Now, some of the roofs in the past were 90 degrees, but it's much more common now to see 180 degree turns. They're a little bit more secure, and they're installed a little bit different way. Now, this video is not going to cover every single type of different metal roofing system that's installed. This is going to be a general overview of how to install the overall system. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the decking that we're going to be using, and then also our underlayment with our ice and water shield. Now, the decking that's underneath this roof is just a standard 1/2 inch OSB. Now, you can use 3/4 inch, you can use 1/2 inch plywood. A lot of people install this over tongue and groove. The point is that you need to make sure that you have a solid decking in order to install your clips, because that's what's most important. Now, a lot of people will go ahead and install standing seam, particularly a 26 or 29 gauge, right over the top of asphalt shingles. And you can do that, but one of the things you got to make sure is the decking below that shingle system is also in place, or you're just going to cause further damage when you put on that new roofing system. So we've been changing out the OSB on this roof. We had a couple bad spots, and we went back over with McGuire's HT300 synthetic underlayment. Now, I don't have to spend a whole lot of time talking about all the different underlayments that you can put on a standing seam roofing system, but in my opinion, anything over a 6/12 pitch, you don't have to put ice and water shield down over the entire decking. I actually recommend just installing an ice and water shield around your eaves and your rakes and across any penetrations. Like, for instance, we have a transition here, so we do have ice and water shield installed here, but I don't recommend doing the entire roofing system with ice and water shield. Now, if you have a low pitch system, anything that's 4/12 or below, you can install ice and water shield over the entire decking of the roof. If not, I recommend doing the roof like you would a asphalt shingle system, and that's using both synthetic underlayment and an ice and water shield. But no matter what my recommendations are, you need to make sure that you check with the manufacturer on exactly what they recommend. Okay, before we talk about actually installing the panels, I really want to spend a little bit of time talking about transitions. Now, not everybody's going to have a transition in your roof, and unfortunately we don't have a valley on this roofing system to talk about, but we are going to concentrate on this area because this is one of the #1 areas that is prone to leak. Now, when installing this, what you want to make sure that you do is all of the decking needs to be replaced. And this is, like I said, an area that does leak often. A lot of times you're going to have bad decking, so you want to make sure that you remove any bad decking from this area and replace it. Then you want to make sure that you use a nice thick ice and water shield strip all along the transition here. And then finally you're going to install what's called a Z-bar. So these Z-bars are these pieces of metal right here, and we have some more video on actually installing these. So once your Z-bars get installed, you see that you're going to have these exposed screws, right? So also underneath here you have exposed screws. So what you're going to do is install what's called tacky tape. Now tacky tape is nothing more than a polymer sealant. Now some people will use caulking right through here, but the reason that we use tacky tape is we think it provides a better solution to preventing any water coming through. And the reason you need to install this is you're basically putting metal on metal. So this is going to create some type of leak point by putting metal on metal. You also have exposed fasteners here. So by installing this tacky tape, you're going to remove any chances of any water penetration coming into your system. Now, this is important to make sure you have all of this correct. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to your manufacturer on the best suggested practices on installing their systems. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the overlap and how to install this, and then also about your drip edge. Now there's, again, a bunch of different drip edges that you can install, but you want to make sure that you change out your drip edge. Don't reuse your drip edge. It's not that really that expensive on your project for what you get, because this is a key component of your roofing system. Now I did another video on how to measure for your standing seam metal roof panels. Now you want to make sure you always measure a little long, because what you have to make sure is you have enough room to overlap. So as you can see on these panels, we have to bend these down over the top of our drip edge, and that's what makes our system complete here. Now in a moment we're actually going to see the guys installing a new panel, so you can see exactly how this works. And the last thing that's so important, and the reason I bring this up is this happened on one of our jobs, is they forgot to take off the plastic after they installed the roof. So this blue plastic that's right here, you have to make sure that you peel this off. Now some of these panels come where the entire panel is covered with plastic and it's a clear film. You have to make sure that you take that off before you finish the project. So now we're here doing the actually really exciting stuff. So we've got the Z-bars installed. Now we're installing the transitional metal here. You can see the guys are going ahead and throwing in the screws right now. And next thing we're going to be doing is actually installing the panels right here up on the roof. Okay, so we're going to talk about installing these clips. Now I'm going to show you a video of the guys actually installing the clips here up on the roof. I just wanted to show you kind of what this one looks like. Now we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about all the different clips, because all these clips are going to be installed based on the type of standing seam that you were installing, whether it be a 90-degree turn, a 180-degree turn, if you're doing mechanically seamed or snap lock, they're all going to be different. Now these also go by your seam height, so whether your seam height is 1 inch, 1.5, 2 inch, it's all going to be different. But I am going to show you exactly how we install these. So basically what you're doing is you're measuring out the length of your or the width of your panels. So if your panels are 16 inches, they're going to be 16-inch spacing. If they're 18 inches, they're going to be 18. But the point is when you install these, you're basically going to be popping lines just like you would a 3-tab shingle job, where you've got to line up all of your different spacing. Of course, now these lines are going to be going up horizontally, or excuse me, vertically versus horizontally, like you would in popping lines for a shingle job. But it's very important that you get your spacing right, because that's how your panels are going to fit together. Now once you get those installed, you're going to be installing screws to keep these in place. Okay, as you see, we were going ahead and installing the panels now. Now guys, it's very important once you're up here to make sure you're using gloves, because these metal panels can be really, really sharp, and one cut can send you straight to the hospital. So once you get the panels all nice and lined up, we're gonna go ahead and put them in place and go ahead and slide these right into the flashing here. Okay guys, so we've talked about just about everything to install on the roof. Now, you are watching this video a couple weeks later, and so we are almost done with the project. But of course, you probably are wondering, what about the flashing and hip and ridge? Well, as you saw, I had on a harness earlier and was showing you how to install a few of the things. I'm not gonna be climbing up on the roof and installing hip and ridge for sure, and I'm gonna show you a few things about the flashing. So, of course, the last thing that you can do on these projects is install your hip and ridge, because just most like any other projects, you need to make sure that you're overlapping your synthetic paper and you're not going to get any leaks throughout your project. So I went in, we had a big rainstorm last week. We wouldn't even finish with the roof, but I wanted to make sure that we didn't have any leaks, and we didn't even, all the leaks they had before were already sealed up before we even got all the rest of the flashing and hip and ridge. So here, example of the hip and ridge on this project. So we'll zoom in a little bit so you can see, but that's what they're up installing right now. So we're going to zoom in on these guys. the superstars, the real workers on the project, putting on the hip and ridge right now. And so just like a hip and ridge that you're going to install on an asphalt shingle roof, instead of having ridge caps, you're going to have these pieces of ridge. It's going to go right across the top. So these are already pre-cut, but it doesn't necessarily go faster because you still have to put in a Z-bar under all of your ridge. So you're going to be putting in a Z-bar right there where the ridge gets installed. I'm going to zoom in, and as you can see, that Z ridge, what that's going to do, so right in here, they're putting on the lightning protection system right now. So that little area right below the lightning protection system in between the panel and the ridge is the Z-bar. So that Z-bar is the same thing that you're installing on the transition, okay? So the transition Z-bar is installed, and then you're also putting a Z-bar underneath all of your panels to make sure there's no wind-blown rain that's gonna go up underneath your ridge and go down into your roof, okay? And then we are gonna go up on the ladder just a little bit. I'm gonna show you some of the flashing here that we've installed. So we went pretty heavy duty on the flashing here. As you can see, completely overlapped, and while this is a standing seam system, we decided to go ahead and rivet these, or excuse me, screw these in, because what we wanted to do was make sure that the flashing wasn't going to slide. Now, one of the problems they had with the flashing earlier is it was sliding down the fascia board. So what we decided to do is go ahead and bolt those in and actually screw those into the fascia, so they're not going to be sliding anymore. So you can see this all along the roof. And of course, there's a bunch of different types of fascia that you can install. So we're not going to go into detail about all the different types, but I did want to show you a little bit of the flashing around outside of the drip edge. So that's it. Okay guys, so thanks a lot for watching the video. I hope this gave you a really good overview on how to install a metal roof. We talked about a lot of different things. We talked about stuff like Z-bars. We talked about cutting your panels. We talked about seam height. We talked about transitions. The only thing we really didn't get a chance to talk about was valleys. And unfortunately on this specific project, we didn't have any, so we can't obviously talk about valleys. But if you guys have any further questions, feel free to drop them below. Again, this is just one of many, many types of roofing systems. But if you do have any other questions, we'd be more happy to answer those questions. So just put it in the comment section below. If you found this video helpful, please give us a thumbs up. It really helps out the channel. And if you like our content, please give us a subscribe. I think you'll get a lot of value out of it. And as always, at Digital Roofing Innovations, we believe in using a modern approach with traditional values. Have a great day.